Hello, and welcome to the Green Team, the weird little spinoff of the Legendarium, where patrons discuss the books and topics our favorite podcast hasn't gotten around to yet. I'm Little Red Book, and today I have with me Mirlyah.
Hi.
And the ultimate bingo troll, the Soulution.
Hey, everybody.
We are going to talk about the ways we interact with books. There's the traditional physical books that we, or at least I, grew up with. That's the thing we normally call books. Then we have ebooks. You can get them on your phone, tablet, or dedicated e-reader. And audiobooks. They've been around for a very long while, but the advent of smartphones and apps like Audible and Libby, they are more accessible than ever. So what are the pros and cons of each medium? Mirlyah.
Well, we could probably talk about this for a while. So I'll start with the pros of physical books. I really like the fact that they're tactile. So we all talk about the smell of physical books, but you can touch them, and sometimes they've got embossed covers, and sometimes they've just got a lovely hardcover, and then the sight of them. Obviously, this is an audio podcast, so we can't show you some examples of beautiful covers of books, but they're just pretty to look at most of the time. But physical books are, I guess, what we would consider to be the most familiar book type for most people. They also allow us to have if you have, say, a giant bookshelf in your house, it's a talking point for visitors when they come to your house. So you can look at your bookshelf and you can display all of the books, and that can start a conversation about the sorts of books that you read. But people can also look at your bookshelf and go, oh, you've got these books and you haven't got this one. Maybe I should gift that one to you as a present in the future.
Bookshelves as a conversation piece, but also a way to elicit presents. I like it.
I don't think I have enough friends like that.
Is that why you're on the Discord?
Oh yeah, that is 100% why I'm on Discord, because my friends are like, "Wait, you read books? Like not video games? You can't read. You can read books?" That's what they would say.
So, what do you like about physical books?
Pretty much the same. The first thing I do when I get a physical book is I open it up and I stick my gigantic nose in it and I smell it because it smells good. I like the different fonts, different textures. It's just something that feels weighty. I feel like when I'm reading an epic fantasy, I do prefer a hardcover book. And it's nice because it just feels like I'm reading like a tome or something. I don't know. Something like that.
One of my favorite things in the whole wide world is Powell's Bookstore. It is the largest used bookstore in the world, which I am very lucky to live in the town where that is a thing. Just, I sometimes go just to smell it because it just smells so great.
You're the weird book lady that goes around sniffing in stores?
I don't sniff at I just walk in and I go, take a deep breath.
Oh, okay.
And smell in all
You do the yoga pose?
I don't do the yoga pose.
Oh, okay.
I'm only doing it for you guys.
Okay.
But yeah, there's something, like you said, it's tactile and they're beautiful and you have some beautiful fonts. But there are some major drawbacks to physical books. So since none of you guys said any of the drawbacks, they're heavy.
Yeah, they are heavy.
I did have one other pro that I really like about physical books, and that's the ability to flick through to find a passage that you liked or a quote, or just remind yourself of your favorite scene. It's a lot harder to do that with other media.
Yes. Also,
Here's my
maps.
Notes.
Oh, look at that. Listeners, she has a book that looks like Panda went through and flagged every single page. That's what it looks like.
Every page has a
maps
sticky
are
note.
great. Although audiobooks, at least all of, or many audiobooks now have PDFs attached to them.
Yeah, they have assets now, which is good because I think a lot of people like maps. A lot of people say they don't care about maps because it shouldn't be relevant to the story. It should be described in the words, which I think is a fair point. But maps are still cool. It's still artwork that comes with a book, and I really enjoy that. And that's something that in a physical book is really nice to see.
I don't like maps because I have a terrible sense of direction and I get lost on the map anyway, just like I do in real life.
It helps you with that, though, or it should.
No, it really doesn't.
Okay.
It really doesn't. So, like I was saying, since nobody else said anything bad about physical books, they're heavy, they take up a lot of space, and
they make moving house fun.
Yeah.
They make moving house fun.
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 Exercise. Yeah. You're
In scare
weightlifting.
quotes. Fun.
Mhm.
Very fun.
Yeah, they're
Um,
heavy.
I got my first e-reader for my ex-husband for my birthday because every time we went to go visit his family, I would pack like 15 pounds of books. And so he was like, here, they only cost $10 a book. You don't need to be packing the books anymore.
Yeah.
So what about ebooks? What are some good and bad things about them?
Ebooks are my primary form of reading. That's the main medium I use. I like them because, contrary to physical books, they are almost always cheaper. There's a lot of indie support and self-published authors that are on ebooks only, so you get a lot more access. And a lot of them do a lot of giveaways and cheap discount books where you can get a book for $1 or 99 cents, wherever your location is. And it's one of those things that is just so convenient. That's what I really
Really?
Yeah, I have in my notes that are on my screen that they're convenient. You can read while you're on the move or while you're eating or using your hands doing something else. And you don't have to worry about accidentally splashing sauce on your lovely physical book because you can generally just wipe it off your ebook reader.
still not
There's
encouraged. Like, don't spill sauce on an electronic device. I'm just saying. But yeah,
oh, for those messy eaters like me out there.
No, I feel you.
We have instant access to books via online bookstores with an e-reader. So it could be midnight and you can't sleep and you just want to read a book and you've got no books because you finished all your books in your TBR pile and you go looking for more. Not that anyone here has finished their TBR
I
pile.
would not know
No.
what you're talking about at all.
The e-readers with the e-ink screens in particular reduce screen glare. So they actually, in some ways, have a better, what's the word I'm looking for?
They don't bother
It's,
your
it's
eyes
better
as
for
much.
your eyes
Yeah,
to be
eyesight.
reading from an
It's nice.
e-reader.
hmm
And it's also really easy to hide the title and the cover of the book you're reading for some of those really smutty and embarrassing cover books that you're reading that you don't want people to know you're reading.
yeah.
Again, I don't know what you're talking about at all. Like I would
I
never
don't know
do
either.
that.
But I definitely read books with embarrassing covers that aren't smutty as well. So that's
So what smut do you read?
just stuff. I go to Kip. Kip really just sets me up. He's like, whatever you need, he's got me. No, just stuff like if you're at the workplace, they don't know anything about what you're reading, and they're just like, oh, you're reading a book. I'm like, yep, okay,
Totally reading a
have a nice
book.
day, and then they
It's a
move on.
book.
They don't have to see whatever it is, 50 Shades of Grey, which I don't read, but if it was something like that, it's okay.
I tried. I gave it 2 chapters and I could not do it. It was just bad. That's off topic.
Yeah, just a little bit, but
So-
that's what we're here for. It's okay.
Like you were saying, especially with the ink, like those are great to read. And you can also just put a tiny touch of backlighting on it if you want. So they're much better to read at night. Also,
Yes.
I love the fact, and this is what I think, because I never thought I would go over to ebooks. The fact that you can change the font, you can change the leading. There's a lot of mass paperback books. I know this is audio, guys, but you
She's
see how
showing up a book with very tiny print. Like we're talking
and very
size like
close
8.
together.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
margins are tiny too.
And the,
Well, yeah, small margins, line spacing is very small. They really tried to cram as much as they could into this one book.
those are just ugly to look at, and they're not good for reading. Oh, shoot. I don't have it with me in here. I was going to...
Listener, she's scrambling around for another audio visual
not
representation.
audio friendly book.
Yeah.
No, but so I got World War Z, the
Okay.
physical copy. The lighting is a lot wider and it's a lot friendlier to the eyes. That is just something that, especially with mass paperback books, is not taken into account. So now you can buy a $10 book and you can change it to fit your preferences. You can make it narrow, you can make it wide, you can space out the lines horizontally as well as vertically. And they have special fonts. I don't know if you guys looked at the link I posted, but they have a font, Amazon does, called Open Dyslexia.
Mhm.
And it's specifically designed to help dyslexic people read. And I wonder how much of my mother's experience with books would have been better if she had some resource like that, because my mother was dyslexic. And I think that's just a really awesome thing that exists in the world now.
Mhm.
And I'm never going to get rid of all my physical books, but it's a nice thing.
I agree. I also have a family member. My father is dyslexic, and it's one of those things where he'll never read anyways, but a lot of that is because he had so much trouble reading to begin with as a child
Yep.
that he does not like to read. So that's one of those things he never reads. So it's something that's going to be helpful for the future generation, starting probably, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years ago.
Audiobooks. Guys, what do we like about audiobooks?
You can listen while you're doing things again. So you can listen while you're driving, you can listen while you're exercising, or you can be doing housework or gardening, playing games. The convenience of being able to listen whilst you're doing things, and you get to listen to someone reading you a story.
It's like Mom reads me to sleep every night. Except that sometimes Mom is Tim Curry, which is weird.
Well, to some people. But yeah, no, she's got a good point. I think the audio format of a story is really interesting. It feels, I want to say old school as in like thousands of years ago, kind of old, where I picture like as a kid, Arabian Nights. And I don't remember if it was like a movie I watched or a TV show where I just, there was this storyteller who was really revered in the show and he would tell his stories aloud. There was no writing. He would gather all the kids, any street urchins, anybody that walked by, and he would tell a story. And it feels kind of like that sometimes, which is nice.
You also get some authors reading their own works or some high-profile people narrating the books, which is also fun.
Oh, man. Neil
Yes.
Gaiman, his own
Yes.
work.
I was going to say Neil Gaiman. He's probably my favorite audiobook narrator, I think.
He is not my favorite. My favorite is Grover Gardner. Although listening to The Stand with this super like soft, what's it called? The thing, the buzzing in the voice and the sound. Do you know what it's like? What?
Oh, with the audio descriptive one or
EMRS. Oh, geez, I'm gonna have to cut this because now I can't remember what it is.
go
But like the painter dude from NPR.
Bob Ross? Wait, no, I was not thinking of, you said NPR.
No, Bob Ross. Yeah. So like the way he uses his voice and kind of he does the thing with his voice and it's kind of a little gravelly.
Oh, you mean ASMR?
Thank you.
That's what you mean. Okay. That's what you were going for. Okay.
Yeah, ASMR. He does that, which is perfect for going to bed. But he also does the 10th anniversary of The Stand, 20th anniversary of The Stand. It's a little weird listening to Stephen King with this super quiet.
Yeah.
No, I can read at work. That's how I plowed through bingo. It's because I was reading all my books at work.
It's very efficient. It is.
It is. But it's easier to let your mind wander while you're listening. And so I find myself skipping back. In fact, the Uplift Wars, I'm actually going to be reading it physically for the second half because I've had to skip back so many times.
I've been listening while I drive, and it's very hard to skip back because I don't have controls to skip back on my car. So sometimes I find my mind wandering, and then I come, well, where are we up to in the book? And I'm like, it's gone now.
I doze off sometimes while something is really important happens, and I wake up and I'm like, I have no idea where I am in this book. What is happening right now?
So what makes you guys want to keep doing audiobooks? Because that's why I primarily don't use audiobooks, because my mind waters so much that I find like for anytime it's a first read, I always try to do an ebook or a physical.
Well, for me, I mean, I have a job where it's very easy for me to stop and skip back if I want to.
Okay. Does the book have to be really captivating, or is if it's not that captivating, is it something that doesn't bother you as much to just go back?
I think it has more to do with I just really enjoy it, and I like having a voice in the back of my brain talking while I'm doing something else. Does that make sense? I don't even know if that makes sense.
No, that's fair. I was just curious because I know I'm one of the few that doesn't really go into audiobook too much. Unless I'm doing something completely mindless, like I know I'm going to paint a room or paint a wall or something, then I know I have many hours to spare that I could totally listen to and concentrate.
Well, and see, I count money and fill in spreadsheets for a living. That's what I do. That doesn't occupy the same spot in my brain as the book. And Stephanie was talking about this on our interview with her and Megan, and she sews for a living. So it's like not something, it's a different spot in my brain anyway. Right. I mean, if I was, I have to stop my books to write an email, for example.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah. I listen to audiobooks mostly because I have only just started listening to audiobooks in about the last 12 months or so. And it's just for the commute to work, really. I find myself listening to them outside of that because sometimes I need to finish the book before I finish my loan at the library. But other than that, it's for my drive to and from work.
The library is a great resource. definitely.
I'm sorry, what?
The library is a great resource because I don't think I've ever bought an audiobook. I've only got them from the library.
So shout out to Libby. Libby is a great resource if you want to borrow audiobooks, and hopefully your library has it.
Libby for us is, well, at least my libraries don't have as many audiobooks on Libby, but we also get Borrow Box, which is Belinda Digital, and they've got an audio side that also does audiobooks, which I thought was quite interesting listening to a couple of the books that some of the main podcast covered, and they complained about the narrator, where when I was listening to the same book, it had a different narrator, and I was really confused about the accent that the main pod was talking about because my narrator had a lovely UK accent. I was like, this is lovely to listen to.
Yeah, there's different narrators.
There have been very few audiobooks I've returned because of the narrator, but there are some really bad narrators, and it ruins the book. It absolutely does.
I think that there have been some books where I have questioned my enjoyment of the book as to whether or not it was because of the narrator or whether it was the book itself. And I've gone, I don't know, because I've only read this book via audiobook, so I don't know whether the way the narrator read it just really turned me off the book or whether it was actually the way that it was written.
Oh, The Count of Monte Cristo. The first version of it I got was so bad. Like, I literally could only listen to a chapter of it. And I have read the book physically and on ebook. And I was just like, no, I can't do this. Dude, you suck.
That's all right. In preparation to this, I read a few of my favorite books, just like the samples of the audiobooks, if I'd never read them before or listened to them. Like Red Rising. I'd even tried that before. I've read the books a bunch of times, and I like them. I love them. But I never thought of them with UK or British accents for the golds. So as soon as he got to that part, I shut it off. I was like, I can't do it. It's way too different than my mind. It's throwing me way off. So I shut off the book. It's not that he was bad. It was just not to my taste.
I tried listening to a book that I read, and it was just the smallest part was the way that the narrator said the protagonist's name was different to how I had imagined it in my head. And the way that he says it is probably correct, and the way that I imagined it was probably incorrect. But just listening to him say it over and over and over again, I couldn't do it.
That's totally fair. If you've done it so much and your own headcanon is now that, when somebody does something else, you're like, no, you just sound ridiculous. I can't listen to you. It doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong.
Say the word D-O-U-R.
D-O-U-R? Dower?
How do you say it, Mirlyah?
No.
I listened to an entire audiobook where he said doer, and it made me insane every time he said it.
And was this a name, or was this just a word?
It
Dower?
was the word dower. Yeah.
I didn't know if like this was a name, and maybe it was like that was his take on.
But he said
the
it like the liquor brand. Doer, D-E-W-E-R. And it made me crazy every single time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll shout out to Kevin Hearn, who did the Iron Druid Chronicles. When you start his book, the first thing you get, even before you even get to the actual story, is a guide on pronunciation, because he used a lot of Irish folklore and their pronunciations and things like that. And the first thing he says is, you read however you want to read. This is how I pronounce it, and he gives you that guide and how to do it in your head if you'd like to, and say it out loud. But he's like, it's okay. Like, nobody's going to mess with you if you say things however you want, because it's okay. It's totally fine. And that's something I took to heart many years ago when I first read that.
Yeah, I've got an author who has a pronunciation guide in her book. Well, I think it's in about book 4 of a 5-book series. And she has said in multiple events and things that this is how she would pronounce her characters' books, but if you want to pronounce it differently, then go for it.
I always give props to an author like that. It's pretty cool.
Like, I think some authors try and make their characters' names pronounceable, especially when they've made up. But there are some out there that are a little bit questionable.
Yeah, with like 2 apostrophes in their names and like a couple X's and some Z's and stuff. I know, like that's a little crazy. Oh my god,
you should read Uplift. There are like literally numbers in people's names.
We'll see. I'll listen to the primer.
No, it's very good. I got my kids who aren't readers to read, so there's that.
Oh.
So this is going to start getting a little complicated. What are some books that you've read across several different mediums? And I just want us to compare how we feel about those things. I want to start with Illuminae, which is a fascinating book in the sense that it's epistolary and that memos, maps, weird things like, I know you guys can't, this is an audio format, sorry guys, like this, where Aiden's talking and it's like a black page and the words are all swirling around on the page.
Yes.
And then the ebook is a PDF.
So to explain to the listeners, the physical version of Illuminae is a graphical design masterpiece of an artwork. It's actually art that's on the pages. You're reading words, but a lot of the words depict like web pages or something that you would see like if you personally were scrolling Wikipedia or something similar to that in that world. And in that universe, you have diagrams, you have countdown timers, you have all kinds of cool sci-fi elements. And the issue with having that in ebook and have it so beautifully done in physical is that the scale is so awful and terrible. It's as if you like took a picture with your phone of this masterpiece and we're like, hey, look at this. And you're like, cool. This should be like 2 pages because you're at one of those things like if you're reading manga or comic books, so you're like, oh, this is a 2-piece section. Like this is 2 pages. You should not be looking at this half of a page. That's not how this ebook works, and it's awful. It is so awful.
It's like everything that's good about ebooks is taken out of the ebook form.
Yeah.
Of this
on
book.
This one specific book.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I did actually look at this book on my iPad because my iPad is my primary e-reader. I don't have a Kindle or a Kobo or any of the other e-readers, and they do actually allow you to change the font size, and it works relatively well, but I only looked at a sample of the page, so I didn't get to all the swirly text sections. It works a little bit better because I think the technology of the iPad allows you to adjust things a little bit better, but I still agree it took away the excitement of the format that the physical book is written in.
Let's talk about the audiobook. Soulution, did you get to listen to any parts of it?
I did listen to a sample of it. It did not get into the crazy stuff because I know it's not just an audiobook. It's what they would call a descriptive audiobook, where, for example, if there's a space battle happening, you would actually hear, which doesn't actually count because in space you wouldn't actually hear anything anyways, but you'd hear...
don't start with that.
I know. We won't go there. That's not what this podcast is about. We'll save that for another podcast. But like, horses, their hooves beating or something, if someone's riding a horse while they're talking. That's what I've heard. I didn't get that far in the sample because it doesn't go into that stuff. But I did, read the book in both formats of ebook and physical. And then I've listened to the sample and I do think it's pretty good.
I like that each of the different sections of the book had a different narrator. So they had narrators for the different main characters. They had a separate narrator for reading out the little briefing notes.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
They had a different narrator for the guy who is apparently everyone's favorite, the guy who's writing the description of the security camera footage.
Who had a very funny Irish accent.
And I think I really like when audiobooks have different narrators for different character point of views. So I think that worked really well.
And it has amazing, you didn't get this far, Soulution, but like they talk about a piece of music and the piece of music is playing in the background as they're talking about it. So Aiden starts up, I'm trying to remember what the particular piece is.
Mozart's Concerto in G or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And they have it playing in the background as the zombies are.
We'll spoiler that. We'll go
I'm
like that. That way there's a nice audio spike. Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. We'll edit that out. We can cut it out.
But the point is that like as they're talking about how Aiden's playing this piece of music while certain actions are happening, that is actually playing in the background as Aiden's narrating what's going on. And it's radio drama. So it's actually a very old.
Right. I'm thinking like War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, something like that. I know they originally started as something like that, where it was broadcast over the radio, and that was their story, and it was translated to written word later.
Yeah, and so that's something that I think is really cool about audiobooks is it's bringing back an old art form and kind of revitalizing it. Although there have been some audiobooks that have not been updated since things like Audible, and it will actually say change to the next disc.
Yeah.
Or change to the tape.
I'm listening to, I think I'm listening to book 3 of the Dresden Files at the moment. And every so often it's just like, please insert the next CD.
Or please flip the tape to the other side. I didn't know tapes were still even in existence.
The book
Crazy.
continues on side B. Yeah, totally. Oh my God. I've just shown one of a standout book that I really like as far as both audio and physical. What are some standouts for you guys for any particular medium?
I mean, I'm currently listening to the Dresden Files on ebook, and I actually started reading this series years ago in physical form, and it didn't really grab me, and so I never continued the series. And then I picked up the audiobook, and it's got James Masters as the narrator, who does an excellent job. The audio quality of the first few books is not fantastic, partly because I don't think they've remastered it since it was originally recorded. It does involve quite a lot of what I would refer to as heavy breathing. There's a lot of inhalation and exhalation, and you can tell that James Masters is taking breaths while he's reading, and some of it works really well in some of the sections, and it's actually described as Harry Dresden breathing deeply and inhaling and or gasping or whatever. But there are the odd few bits where it's just clearly he's taking a breath so that he can continue reading, and that was a little bit annoying. But when I think back to the way that it's read and the fact that we do get a little bit of this breathing part of it, it actually makes the audiobook seem a little bit more authentic. Like, it sounds like Harry Dresden is actually sitting at one of his dusty desks and reading the book to you.
Yeah, like when he describes the action scenes, because I have listened and read Dresden Files. Not all the books, but I've listened to, I'd say, half of them. When he does the action scenes and you hear him, like, he's breathing fast and he's breathing in and he's talking really fast, it's kind of cool. Like, I really think it does feel authentic. Like you said, like Harry might actually be telling us this story.
Yeah.
I feel like with action scenes in general, I do better with audio because I feel like when you're reading, you start skipping over words during an action scene because you want to see what's going to happen. That makes sense?
I think some people do that. Some people don't. Like, I used to not do that at all, and I found myself doing that recently in the past, like, year or two. And I kind of know what you mean.
So a book that I've not completely finished in physical format is Brightness Reef. I listened to it. So the audiobook does an okay job with the fact that the dolphins speak in haiku, and this is not a spoiler. So,
what? You said the dolphins, right? just to clarify. Okay. All right, continue.
Dolphins
That's fine.
That's all I did. That's like a thing they do. And on the ebook, that formatting is stripped away, so you don't see it. But the audiobook, you can tell that it's different. It's set aside. The physical book has it centered in italics and quotes for each haiku. It does a beautiful little thing visually that you don't get from an audiobook or from the Kindle version of it. There are just certain things that you can only do in print. And it's just the way it is.
It's an experience you're gonna miss on being an audio.
Exactly. And I only know about it because Arrow was sending me pictures of the physical text. Well, I have the physical copy now, but I didn't when we reviewed Star Tide Rising. And I just think that I don't think that there's one right way to read a book or experience a story. So that's just like another example of things that are different.
I listened to the first 3 books in a series, the ones that have been published, that were reviewed by our friend Drew from Inking Out Loud, and he absolutely ripped into this book.
Let me guess. Can I guess it was Ruin a King?
Yep.
Yes! He convinced me not to read that book, even though I got it for free.
We're getting
That's
super
right.
referential.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine.
I really enjoyed this book, and I listened to it as an audiobook, and I'm not by any means a person who delves deeply into literary structure or analysis. So I probably read from a different point of view to how Drew reads. What I really liked about the audiobook was the fact that they used different narrators for the two different points of view that the book was going through. Actually, no, they had 3 different narrators. But the way that the book is set out is it's used, I can't remember the word, where they use storytelling within the book as a way to tell the story. So
kind of like the epistolary, almost.
kind of like that, where so there's these 2 characters in Ruin of Kings, at least. They've got a narrator, like a third narrator, but then they go into these sections of the books where 2 of the characters are essentially having a conversation with each other, and one of them goes, "Oh, I've got this stone that is going to record everything that we say," and so they take it in turns to tell the story to the stone, and so it's like they're narrating the story from events that happened in the past.
Okay.
And I thought that it was a really cool way to tell that story, and I thought that it worked on the audiobook. I did pick up a physical book and have a flick through it, and I mean, it's just written like a normal story, so I just thought that the audiobook made that work really well.
Have you had an experience like that, Soul?
Let's see. Well,
switching from one format to another and been like,
Well, I mentioned Red Rising. That one threw me for a loop. I've had a very weird relationship with Neil Gaiman, not personally, because I don't know him. with his
I actually know
works.
somebody who does know him, but okay.
Oh. Yeah, no, he actually seems like a very cool guy. It's mostly that I don't always connect with his works. And then when I listen to him narrate, I like the way he narrates his works, and I find that if I listen to an audiobook of his, I like it more than when I just read his books most of the time. I'm still very hit and miss on all of his work. I prefer Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in audiobook format. They're still good in physical and ebook form, but something about the British humor just goes so well when it's being spoken that I really enjoy that. I'd recommend it. It is narrated by Stephen Fry. Get that version.
Oh, nice.
Yes, very good.
He does an excellent job with Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
I think I got all caught up on Neil Gaiman, and I was thinking about him. So
Whoops.
I've read American Gods all 3 ways, and it is fabulous to me every single way you read it. He doesn't actually narrate American Gods, if I remember correctly. But but there are some stories that translate really well across the 3 different ways, 3 different media. And there are some stories that just work really well in one format or another. That's why I'm excited that we have all these options, guys. We have so many options.
Yeah, everybody can like whichever option they want. There's no best medium. It's whatever's the most personal and easiest of use for everybody. Some people may want a cheaper option, or some people want a more immersive option. That's the best part of having multiple ones. It's good.
The nice thing about living in the city with pals is I can find almost every book used for super cheap. If I want
I can.
Yeah.
I'll mail you a book. I think we're starting to wind down a little bit. What is your favorite medium for consuming a book? Just everyday use, not...
I think I mentioned earlier, it's mostly just ebook. I like that I can get it from the library, most of the books I want, and if not, it's because I'm supporting self-published authors that aren't in my library. Anything major I can usually get. And then if I decide I want to buy one and I just zoom through a series, that's totally okay too, and I like the ease of use. That's the most important. What about you guys?
I really like physical books, but having said that, I think I currently go through audiobooks faster just because you play an audiobook and it just keeps going, whereas it's much easier to get distracted when you're having to read the book yourself. I think from a convenience factor, I tend to pick up ebooks more than I pick up my physical books. But I prefer the physical books because I remember that I've got them. So if there's a book that I'm reading that I want to remember that I've read, I will try and get a physical copy of it. And I've often found that there are some books where I've started an ebook version of it and then just gone, I'm not in the right mindset for this, because I think where I use ebook is just for that convenience. I need something to just... I don't want to think about it. I don't want to have to think about it. It's just something there that I want to get taken away to another world and not have to think about anything else that's going on around me and think about what the narrator is actually trying to tell me. So a book like, for instance, trying to start the Malazan series, for instance, I wouldn't read that on an ebook because having a physical book in front of me makes me concentrate more on it, which I find really weird. But anyway, I often tend to forget that I've actually got copies of books as an ebook, and will sometimes forget that I've read those books. And I go, oh, I actually did read that book, but it was a while ago and on an ebook, and I don't remember anything about the book that I read. So I definitely prefer physical copies of books because it reminds me that I've actually read it, and I can flick through it and go, oh yeah, that's what happened in this book. Whereas I find that a lot more tricky to do with an ebook.
I think you're crazy, and I'll tell you why. I prefer to forget because I forget books all the time. If I've read a book more than a year ago, I forget, I'd say 80% of the details, and it makes rereading a book that you know is good because you've already read it really fun because I've done stuff where like, oh, here's when the trick happens, and they switch it up on you. I'm like, nope, I must have been thinking about the trick so hard that was in my mind, and it actually tricked me again. So I really enjoy that.
I have a fairly good memory from, I think most people have said I've got a very good memory for random details and things. So I tend to remember books, and I've got 3 out of 5 of the books of the way through the Lightbringer series, and I can still pretty much remember what happened in those. And I think the last one I read maybe about a year ago.
You're kind of bragging. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, just a little humble bragging going on. It's okay.
I will fully admit I'm in Soulution's situation. I read 80 plus books a year, so I forget a lot. But I always like going back and reading those books. Yeah, no,
it's
totally
not bad.
is.
It's not bad at all. I used to be like, oh man, I forgot stuff. I'm like, wait, I can experience this again, and I already know I liked it because I liked it the first time.
Yep. There's a reason why I read any book I review twice. So
I remember watching cartoons, and my brother would go, oh, it's this cartoon, and I'm like, yeah, we just watched that like yesterday, and he's just like, but I get to watch it again, and I'm like,
he's so excited.
The excitement, like the fun is gone because I know what's going to happen. He's just like, I've forgotten what happened. It was yesterday.
I disagree with you. I mean, you're okay to feel that way. I disagree with you, especially when you're reading someone like Brandon Sanderson or a couple authors, Bujold. The second time through, you get to see how the trick works. And that's a really cool thing. You know what I mean? Like the first time you're like, oh,
they surprise you.
Yeah. And the second... What I like about that sort of thing is that often if there's like a little twist or a surprise, I'll flick back and go, was it foreshadowed anywhere that I can think of?
Oh, you would flick back the first time as soon as it happens?
I would flick back, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh.
I saved that for the reread because I'm like, all right, next time I read this, I think I got to go back and be like, what did they do?
Right.
So I can catch it. Because a few times I'll be like, oh, I remember this happened, but not too many things.
No, I flick back straight away. That's why I like physical books. Because I can flick back really easily.
Yeah, so I actually have almost completely converted over to audio. I think I've read 4 books with my actual eyeballs in the last year, and I'm still stuck on one book. I haven't finished it because I have to read it with my eyeballs. And everybody else in the buddy read is done with the book, and I'm halfway through.
Sure, they knew what they were getting into. You do a lot of projects like
this
that's
podcast.
Part of it
too. So any closing thoughts that you want to share with the folks before we say goodbye?
Oh, you didn't do the desert island question.
Oh, I didn't.
Reading through.
So we should do that.
Only because I actually picked out what I wanted. I was like, all right, I'm ready. I
got to scroll up and look at it. I remember it vaguely. The desert island question is, I'm guessing, if you could only have one format of book, what would you take?
So I'll go first. My format of book would be ebook because hopefully, here's what I would do is I'd go to the library and maybe I'd even just like maybe try and get a second library account or something. I'd just like download all as many ebooks as I can. Every minute I give you like a 20 limit and I would just download them all and then I'd turn the Wi-Fi off because there's going to be no Wi-Fi when I get to the island. And
we're going to assume that you can charge your ebook, by the way, while you're on the island.
Oh, that's even better. I was going to put it with no backlighting and I would just be holding it up to the sun the whole time with the smallest print so I could get as much done as possible. That's what I was going to do. What about you guys?
I was about to say, are we able to charge our e-readers?
We're going to assume that we can charge our e-readers. It's kind of a cheat, but that's okay.
I mean, if it was a desert island, I would go ebook only because having to lug around physical books while you're on a desert island is a little hard.
Well, the first thing you should do is make a home when you're on the island. You're going to be there. So you could make a bookshelf. I mean, I'd make a bed and other things first, but you could make a.
Yeah,
You
I
gotta
mean,
get
I've
all
just
those
filled up my
there.
bookshelf here.
She doesn't want to move again. I think that's what she's saying. What about you, Red? What would you do?
I'm going to take audiobook because I can listen while I'm building my hut and foraging for food.
That's productive, actually. That's pretty good. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I'd be doing nothing if I was actually reading. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I'd probably die if I got on a desert island by myself
yeah.
anyway, so that's totally fine.
Yeah. No, it's. I remember when Walking Dead was a thing, big, and I was reading the comic books, and one of my, I think it was number 2 son, he picked it up and he's got himself super freaked out reading it.
Okay.
He said, "Mom, what would you do if there was a zombie apocalypse?" And I was like, "Honey, I would die. That's what would happen."
We would all die. You just sound like it. Listen,
I'm
son,
not gonna survive
we'd all be
the
dead.
apocalypse.
None of us are going to make it.
And not only that, I don't know that I want to survive the apocalypse. Like, maybe I'd rather just not be around.
You see how this world is? We don't want to be there. We just want to die. Trust me, kid. And you just take them by the hand and you walk them around. And you're like, see that? That's probably where we're going to die right there. And you point outside. Yeah.
I find a lot of off topic, a lot of authors when they've been asked that question about, who would you be in the Hunger Games, for instance, and they'd be like, I'd be the person that died straight away.
Yeah. A lot of us have totally irrelevant skills for any of that stuff. I mean, we're not irrelevant. We have skills, just not, usually combat skills.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the zombies don't care about the fact that I can use Excel spreadsheets. Like, I don't think that's a thing that they care about.
Well, you could yell it at them as you die, and they'll know.
Yes, exactly.
They'll take it with them.
You won't be able to keep track of your numbers.
Yeah, that's okay. You got skills, just not the right ones.
Nope. No, I do not. So, anything else, guys?
The only other thing that I think I might have mentioned, how physical copies have nice covers most of the time.
Yes.
But collector's editions of books. Collector's editions are pretty.
Yes,
and
they
I'm
are.
Just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, well, I'll plug Brandon Sanderson, the nice leather-bound copy. Like, I didn't spring for that, but I was close. There's some very cool books out there that are just like collector's editions or leather-bounds. Really nice artwork. Red Rising has some new artwork that's been going out and some other stuff. Really nice. So if you're into art and also reading at the same time, there's a lot of cool options for people.
Something that I've meant to say about 5 times, so I'm going to try and remember to say it. I own Warbreaker on ebook.
Mm-hmm.
I bought it before the annotated version came out. My version is now annotated, and that's really creepy.
Yeah,
it just updated.
It updated it. Okay.
Yeah, and so one thing I will say for physical books is they don't randomly change on you.
That's true.
You're not going to open it and find out all of a sudden that you have all the annotations from the author. And I wonder how that affects somebody's first, because I talked my friend into reading it. He's like, it's annotated because he bought an ebook version of it. And I'm like, right. That's weird. Mine's not. I went back and looked at it and it was all of a sudden. So how does that affect new readers on a book?
It can help with like spelling, like a lot of errors or just stuff like that. Like I know some stuff like, it's like this was misspelled. And I come back a year or two later, I'm like, oh, good, they fixed a lot of spelling mistakes or other grammatical errors.
But so many mistakes in ebooks.
Yeah.
I read through ebooks and find so many mistakes that I'm like, did this even go through any sort of editing process?
Probably not. Probably just
you find them in regular books too, but I'm just saying it's kind of creepy when my not annotated book is now.
Is there any way to turn that annotation off?
You just don't have to click on it. You can just skip past it. It's like a
footnotes.
Yeah, like a footnotes thing. But it's still, it's just like, it's a weird thing that is a little creepy. Like the time where 1984 got removed from everybody's Kindle, which I don't know if you remember that. It was like, I don't know, 10 years ago. Everyone who had bought 1984 suddenly didn't have 1984 on their Kindle anymore.
No, I haven't read it yet, so it's on the mountain. I'll get there eventually.
You and Chesky in your mountains.
Yeah. Well, he reads a lot faster than I do, so his mountain is quite high.
And he also likes to add all of the random books that I add that no one else has read.
He will read anything. He really will. He will give anything a chance. It's okay. It's a cool thing. One of those things. It's okay. Everybody has different tastes.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Let us know how you enjoy your books. You can join the conversation on Reddit or Discord. We are also on Twitter at Green Team Pod. Please consider supporting the Legendarium via Patreon. The music is Galactic Damages by Jingle Pumps. Thank you, Craig, for loaning a little corner of your media empire, and a shout out to Horizon Brave for starting it all. For Mirlyah, the Soulution, I am Little Red Book. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Mount Rushmore just isn't a thing outside of the US.
It will be when we make it a thing.
But when I say Mount Rushmore, you know what I'm talking about, right?
No. Like, I pictured the side of a mountain that has a bunch of US president faces on it that I have no idea
Perfect.
who they are.
That's all you needed.
No,
that's all I
you
got.
need to know.
Yeah, that's all you. That's all
what
we
it
got
is.
either. So we just get really hyped about it because it's, I don't know, it's just a big mountain with faces on it. We like
awesome.
simple things in America.
Who
That's
doesn't
one of the
like a mountain with faces on it? Like that.
How many mountains with faces on do you have? Even just random faces. It's okay.